Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've got a new first interview from a company that has me very excited. I'm a junkie for high grade gold and some of the greatest, well, the greatest gold mines of high grade are orogenic gold systems. And one of the greatest is the Fosterville mine in Australia. uh, Golden Cross has a project not very far from the Fosterville mine, and the company to their immediate south has had great success. And they've recently started drilling. I think it checks all the boxes that I look for. And I'm glad to have Matt Roma on today to talk about Golden Cross.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
I like your name. One of the in it, I'm not a huge technical analyst, but one of my favorite indicators is a golden cross when that happens in a stock. Yours didn't happen too long ago, and so I really like the name.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
So, folks, when you're looking at an orogenic gold system, there's certain characteristics that you look for. One is the age of the rocks. You need these very old greenstone belts, Archean rocks that also have structures. So structures, faults are cracks in the earth where the metals bearing fluids make their way up towards the surface. And of course, you need high grade gold. And that's the basics of the Fosterville mine. And those same characteristics are at Golden Cross's project in Australia. Got any more of the high level sort of pitch there, Matt?
Yeah, no, I think, essentially, Victoria, Australia is known for these high grade gold veins. And what you see at Fosterville and the Costerfield mine is exactly that. And it's been proven to be a very profitable mine. I believe Fosterville is the, highest grade gold mine in production today. And Southern Cross at their Sunday Creek project has identified, additional high grade veins that have now capped that company at about
And that
1.4.
Southern Cross is immediately to your south, correct? And not very far from
Yeah,
where you're drilling, I believe.
that's correct. So basically, we own 445 square kilometers directly north and contiguous to Southern Cross, and we are drilling less than 10 kilometers away from their, probably 2024's global gold discovery of the year. And yeah, we from everything that we're seeing, it's this classic Victorian type gold systems where you have these, gold veins that run quite deep and what you see at Fosterville, Cosfield, and at Sunday Creek is as you go deeper, the grade only improves. And we believe we're onto that at our Reedy Creek project, and we're about 2,200 meters into a drill campaign right now, and assays are pending, but yeah, there's lots of things at surface that suggest that we may have another classic Victorian type gold system.
So, folks, when Matt is talking about that these systems go deep, these orogenic gold systems, where the temperature and pressure is perfect, it can be down thousands of meters, 10,000 plus meters. And because of the high grade nature of that source, if you will, and the pressure, it pumps up through these cracks in the earth. And when you see that there is an enormous amount of historical mining that happened at the at Golden Cross's project, you've sort of got that perfect model there of what you want to look for. And as Matt said, that these systems, as you follow them deeper, can get higher grade. For example, at Fosterville, they mined there for like 20 years, let's say within the first 300 meters. They got down about 700 plus meters, and they just hit it out of the park with bonanza grade gold. So they have these zonations of grade as you get deeper into the system. And that's what Matt was talking about.
Thank you, Alan.
So you've got first, let's talk about what attracted you to the project with all the surface work that had been completed on the project.
Yeah, so we first got onto this project almost a year ago now. And very familiar with Victoria, obviously, known for high grade gold systems. But at the time that we kind of stepped in to acquire this or started to do due diligence, all we had was the previous owner's kind of historical drilling. And not to discredited. It was very good. They definitely had some great hits. But there hadn't been a lot of work done regionally or ultimately, any sort of surface work or Lidar. So, beyond just some very high grade hits, we were a little bit unsure of the prospectivity. So, we hired a team and we went out there and started doing some work. And our VP of exploration, Allan was the gentleman we hired to do it. And after walking the ground and talking to some of the people that worked on site, he came back with, glowing reviews of the project. Basically said, if you can get this, you need to, and also can I join you because I really want to work on this project. So ultimately, we struck a deal with Great Pacific Gold and brought on Allan and his local team there to basically run our exploration program. And now he's doing that full time with us.
So that
And sorry,
I
sorry,
kind
go
of
ahead, Alan.
remember Great Pacific doing some of that drilling, and it wasn't a very good time in the market. And
No.
they also subsequently, their management team had a lot of success in Papua New Guinea. So they kind of were sort of transitioning to focusing more on Papua New Guinea, if I got that all correct.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting story there, Alan. So one of the founders of K92, Brian Slazarchuk, which K92 is in Papua New Guinea. When he left that organization, he built Great Pacific Gold, and Great Pacific Gold was focused on Papua New Guinea, but also had these great assets in Victoria. And as when you're a junior and the market is not like it is today, and capital is hard to come by, you kind of got to pick where you're going to operate. There's just not enough capital to do it all,
And at
or a
that
team
time,
to.
K92 was having a lot of success, even in a tough market. So, when
Correct.
you're prioritizing, you got to consider all that.
Exactly, exactly. And ultimately, it's not that Great Pacific didn't like these assets. They needed to focus where they felt, their shareholders wanted them to focus. And really they were trying to replicate K92 success with their projects in Papua New Guinea. So the way we were able to actually get this asset, because we weren't the only ones at the table trying to acquire it, was that Daryl Carty, who's on the board of Golden Cross, and Brian go back to K92. They were both there at the start of K92. So when Daryl got wind that these assets may be for sale, we jumped at an opportunity to look at them, and ultimately, working closely with Brian to structure a deal that benefits, us and also Great Pacific. They needed an opportunity to have some upside if we are successful. And the way we structured the deal was we basically paid them 1 million in cash, but also gave them 10% carry in the company
Oh,
that we
wow.
acquired the asset with. So, they're obviously been very happy shareholders as we've moved the project forward in the last, call it, 3.5 months.
So they get a 10% carried interest, 1 million in cash, and did they get some stock in your company as well?
Sorry, when I say 10% carry, I mean they basically own 10% of the company
Yeah.
post financing that we did on listing and post vending of the asset. So it
Okay.
worked out to about 6 million shares.
Oh, okay. So, but they don't keep topping up along the way,
No, no,
right?
no, sorry. So they became a 9-9 shareholder on day one.
Yeah.
And if they want to continue to hold that, then they will have to invest alongside as we do further financings.
So, and do they keep any NSR or anything like that?
No, so we own 100% of the project outright.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, it was one of those situations that happens where you get good timing and good relationships inside the company with management of the other company, and you got yourself a great project.
Yeah, and it's, you're right. Like timing is everything, and just on timing, when we acquired or when we started doing due diligence on this asset, Southern Cross was a 250 million market cap company and not really well known in North America. Fast forward to April when we ultimately came back to trade on the venture exchange. Southern Cross was over $1 billion and weeks later raised $160 million in a private placement. So to say like we got lucky would be a massive understatement in terms of timing and really just, credit to Southern Cross and the success they've had, but also just, how they brought so much more attention to exploration in Victoria. Everyone knows they're known for high grade gold mines, but this discovery shows that maybe there's more rocks to be discovered here, and that's what we're ultimately here to do. We're trying to make a discovery of scale and create shareholder value.
So let's get a little. So we kind of touched on the how this came into your hands. And I wanted to look, I did some homework because I have made this a pick of mine, Golden Cross, and it's up quite nicely in a short period of time. So you're making me look smart. I always like that, Matt. It's a Herculean task sometimes. But when I was doing my homework, I saw the similarities between Southern Cross's ground and how they went about making their discovery. But what kind of blew me away about your ground is that it looked to me like Southern Cross was led to that area due to historical mining a long time ago by local miners that, do this small scale mining. And there was a few occurrences where they had done this. But then I looked at your project and it's just riddled with locations where that historical mining happened.
Exactly. So this is an area of the world where this was, artisanal mining, was a big part of the economy back then. And we're talking, late 1800s. And, with limited technology, the artisanal miners would dig in and try to find these high grade veins we talked about, and they would
Literally
dig
dig in.
them. Yeah, and they would dig them as low as they could go, a couple hundred meters, but historical production showcases both the grade and the material even at surface that can be quite economic, and basically it's not like they were worried about reclamation back then. So by walking the ground you can see old mine shafts and adits, and what we did is basically right when we acquired the project is we flew the ground with Lidar imagery, knowing that this was an area that was prolific for artisanal mining. And you point that one of the slides in our deck has all those red
I'm just going
dots.
to interrupt you for a second there, Matt. Not all my audience are geologists and may not know what LIDAR does. So, LIDAR, it enables you to sort of take away the vegetation and top the bedrock and see what the bedrock looks like. And so, therefore, you can see where there was holes in the rock. And that's why that was important. Sorry for the interruption
Exactly.
there, Matt.
Exactly. And to do sort of like a regional campaign to kind of if you were to do that with just with a crew to go and walk all that ground, it would take weeks if not months and significant cost. And by just flying with LiDAR, we cut all of that out. And basically from there can start to pinpoint where we see the most prospective areas based on the clusters of workings. And the reason why those workings are important is Southern Cross at Sunday Creek had six old gold workings at the surface at Sunday Creek, and they drilled that project, and lo and behold, are now a $1.5 billion company, or give or take give or take. But when we flew our project with
Give
lidar
or take
imagery,
your valuation.
yeah, exactly. And on our project, we've got north of 200 old workings, with a heavy cluster at Reedy Creek, which is where we are drilling. We're actively drilling, and another area which we actually just talked about this morning in a news release, and it is August 25th while we're recording this. That At an area called Welcome Reef. So two areas that have a ton of old workings on them that deserve a ton of attention with a drill bit, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
And if my memory serves me correctly from looking at your presentation, the on the Reedy Creek area, there is a structure that kind of is right beside it. Did I get that right, Matt?
Yeah, yeah, and we've basically mapped out like a 7 kilometer trend that basically comes from the northwest of the area of Victoria, which is kind of where Fosterville is, and it's running southeast through our Reedy Creek project, and basically right to where Southern Cross is actively exploring at and around Sunday Creek. And we believe that there's a possibility this is a structural trend that runs right to the northwest of where Fosterville is.
Wow. So, those are what you call regional crustal structures, folks. What that basically means is that it goes for a very long distance. And you can think for the Canadians about the Abitibi region that has these big features. And those are sort of a conduit that the metals bearing fluids use. But then when you get close to the surface, you'll often find secondary structures that are also really important in these kind of systems. And my guess is that that's exactly what you're seeing, that you got the whole checkbox of what you want to see with the cracks in the earth, if you will, Matt.
Yep, exactly.
And they kind of mapped it out for you there with all the all those historical mines sitting right beside that big regional fault.
Totally. That's exactly right.
Wow. And folks, in this kind of scenario, a lot of times the company would have to go out there and do a whole bunch of sampling and wait for the assay results. But those old time miners were kind of doing that work for you. So it saved you guys a lot of money, right, Matt?
And time. And I think that's crucial.
And sort of allows you to hit the ground running with the truth machine in your drilling.
Well, that's exactly right. We launched the company at the end of April and we were drilling at the end of May.
Holy moly, that's
Yeah.
fast. And
Yeah.
you guys are well financed as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so we initially launched the company at the end of April and we raised just shy of $5 million. And then at the beginning of July, we raised another 5 million, at three times what we did our initial financing at, and had a ton of support. And today we're, probably have just shy of $7 million. And this area of the world, it's very efficient drilling. Our all-in drill cost is about $230 Canadian a meter, which includes
Wow.
assays, which so with a
That's
full
pretty
treasury,
cheap these days. There's no A
totally.
lot are drilling at hundreds of dollars more than that, all
That's
in cost.
that's totally, totally. And what's beautiful about Victoria is you can drill 12 months of the year. So, you take Christmas off, a bit of time around the holidays, and other than that, you can drill all year.
Wow. So, tell me a little bit about your background and some of your members of your team, Matt.
Yeah, so I'm the director and CEO of the company. I am a chartered accountant by trade. Been in, the mining world for close to 13, 14 years now. Originally articled at a company called Deloitte in Vancouver, which is a, public audit firm specialized in resource companies. Left there and joined the issuer side, and back in about 2018, started working, more in the venture capital space, structuring and putting together, public resource companies. I was one of the co-founders of a company called Gladiator Metals, which is a copper developer up in the Yukon. I was also the, original CFO of a company called Snowline Gold,
Oh,
which is
wow.
another remarkable gold discovery up in the Yukon. I think they're probably in $1.5 billion market cap today.
And
And I
just
and I stepped
raised a a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, just announced an $80 million bought deal financing, likely to
Wow.
be upsized. And yeah, I left that company, in more of a full-time capacity to really focus on Golden Cross. And you know, uh, my partners and I had been looking for the right asset, in the right commodity, in the right jurisdiction for probably close to 2 years, to put something in a company in a shell that we had. And this ultimately checked all the boxes for us. And after looking at 20 plus projects, we're excited to finally get this one and get it going. And the first 3.5 months have been a very exciting time, and we're super happy with how the market is received it.
And who leads your geological team, Matt?
So it's Allan Till, who I mentioned, who's a Melbourne resident, has made discoveries all over the world, and he lives about 20 minutes from the project and has assembled a fantastic team there. And yeah, so he's been a star.
So he's very intimate with that area, with Fosterville, with
Absolutely,
the history,
absolutely, yeah.
right? Well, it's always good to have one of those guys that are local there that know the whole history. That can save a lot of time and money.
Totally, and also just well received in the communities and things like that as a local versus a foreigner coming in.
Okay. And so you're fully permitted to drill, drill, drill.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have no issues with exploration permits, and it's quite a ways down the road, but even as you get into development and even production, Victoria is very pro mining, very very accommodating, and see the value in mineral production.
Just down the road, they got one of the great mines. I'm sure that's been a very good situation for the local economy,
Absolutely.
right? And so, where do you stand now? You've been doing drilling. You've got how many rigs on the property? What's happening now, if you will?
Yeah, so when we first started drilling at the end of May, we had one rig. Once we closed our most recent financing, the beginning of July, we added a second rig. So we're running two rigs consistently right now. And we're about 2,200 meters into our program, and we have enough cash to drill well into 2026 with our current treasury. Um, and we've got assays pending on basically all our results right now. Unfortunately, well, depends how you look at it. Fortunately, that we have a wonderful neighbor who's showcased how exciting these rocks are. Unfortunately, we don't we're not above them in the pecking order at the assay lab. So unfortunately, it's been a bit slow to get assays out of the lab, but well, let's hope that they're coming, and we should have some steady news flow by the end of summer. And with two rigs turning, we should have some consistent cadence of news flow on drill results.
So, Matt, something a lot of people talk about how they prioritize what they look at. I've always been a project first guy. And up my priority list these days is what I look for is companies that are committed to digital marketing by getting out there and telling their story. And I've noticed that you guys are really good at that. You guys have done a bunch of uh, interviews like this. I'm super happy you did one with me because when you don't tell your story enough these days, there's a lot of investors out there looking for projects, but and companies to invest in, but they also are bombarded with a lot of things that pull their attention. So, in my way of thinking, in order to really be top of mind with investors in this sector, you got to be out there telling the story, and you've got so many great tools to do that. It's kind of incumbent on companies because it helps with the cost of capital.
Totally, couldn't agree more.
So you guys have done a great job of telling your story, and you got a great story to tell.
Yeah, and it's a yeah, like you say, it's a good story to tell. I don't get sick of telling it. It's exciting. We very forthcoming, and this is ultimately this is a drill punt story. but it's got a ton of blue sky. There is no shortage of targets. If you look at our investor deck, you can see, the amount of targets that we have that we want to test. We've got a great structure. We've got a proven team that's been able to make discoveries and transact in the space. And we're fully financed with no financing overhang as we come into what I hope is very steady news flow and hopefully very good news flow on drill results. So yeah, couldn't be more excited where we're at in our life cycle and the position we're in today.
Well, drill punts are not all created equal, Matt,
No, they're
and
not.
it's very rare to see a company have such a large land package in close proximity to one of the world's greatest high-grade gold mines, have all the same geological characteristics, have another discovery to their immediate south, and a project that's just been riddled with historical mining and all the characteristics of what you want to check off in the boxes of how to make a discovery. So I think it's a hell of a good drill punt, if you will.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Okay. And so earlier today, as I was preparing to do this show, you put out an announcement. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Matt?
Yeah, so we put out an announcement this morning talking about two key prospects for us, within the Reedy Creek project. So one is where we're actively drilling right now called Shepherd's Hill, which is northwest, closer to the trend of Fosterville than any historical drilling on the project has done to date. And that's where we started drilling some deeper holes, average depth of about 300 meters. With those drill holes, we're really targeting multiple vein structures, which ultimately was the turning point for Southern Cross and at their Sunday Creek project is they started drilling deeper holes, looking to intersect multiple high-grade veins with one drill hole. And when they were able to do that and showcase, the grade and the consistency of these systems was really the turning point for them as a company and quite frankly their share price. So that's what we're doing now. And then we also were talking about an area called Welcome Reef,
I saw that
which
that's over to the east, and
that's
there's
on the east side.
another center of a lot of historical mining.
Exactly. So that was an old gold field, and that was actually mined by a prospector called Louis Amui, who has a very interesting backstory. But I believe back in I think it was around 1859, if I remember correctly, he brought in a group and they started mining that area and had some fantastic production at great high grades, and he went on to be the wealthiest man in Victoria from that gold field. And then ultimately led to starting a bank called Westpac, which, if any of your listeners in Australia, they will know it very well. It's, one of the largest banks in Australia, and that was funded from gold production in Victoria. And that we only secured land access to that area a few weeks ago, and no prior operator has been able to secure land access to be able to do any sort of modern exploration on that area of our project. So, kudos to Allan and his team, been able to not only, get the landowner to the table and ultimately reach a deal, but they're already starting some regional work on that this week, and that area will see a drill bit later this year.
So if I could summarize, you got all the check marks, and I think you could call it a target-rich project for high-grade gold discoveries.
Yeah, there is no shortage of targets on this project, which is what was so attractive to us. Um, you know, Typically, a lot of times if you have a project and you drill it and you don't hit, well then, you're out of luck. But there is no shortage of targets across our 445 square kilometers. And quite frankly, they all deserve some attention. And the hardest part has been ranking these in terms of, where to drill next. So with two rigs, we're doing everything we can, and yeah, I'm very excited to see a drill at Welcome Reef later this year.
Excellent. So, working down in Mexico on drill programs in the past, one of the things that I was able to do when everybody was talking about the delays at labs, what I was able to do is in Zacatecas State City where I live, I used the ALS lab to do the sample prep because I knew that the delays at a lot of labs are in the sample preparation, not the assays themselves. So they would do the sample prep here in Zacatecas, Mexico, send the concentrates to Vancouver, and I would get the assay results back fairly quickly. Now, are you able to do anything similar to that? Because you've got sort of competing with Southern Cross, if you will.
Yeah, so we're looking at alternatives to speed this up, and one of them is honestly is building our own prep lab on site. Um, but you know, we didn't expect it to be this. I don't want to say painful, but this slow.
Yep.
And so we're actively looking at ways that we can speed it up and kind of cut down turnaround time. Not only do we want to provide results to the market, of course, but it also, it directs future drilling. It's data that will drive decision making. So ways that we to alleviate the time between, when we send it in and when we get the results back is crucial for us. And definitely a focus of how do we make this quicker moving forward.
Perfect. So going forward, sounds like you're going to have a lot of news flow for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think, based on our shareholder register right now, we've got some of the, largest funds in the gold space, invested in us and, ultimately want to kind of continue to give us money as we, improve the story and put out news. So, as long as we continue to deliver on the drill bit, I don't see any concerns with raising additional capital as we move forward. And as because we can drill 12 months of the year, news flow will be steady.
Perfect. You have any closing comments, Matt?
I just say, Alan, thanks for having us on, and I'm happy to come on any time and provide any updates to your audience. And yeah, if anyone wants additional color on the story or would like to have a conversation, please reach out through our website, goldencrossresources.com. Always happy to chat with anyone.
And your stock symbol AUX on the venture, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and
Well, as I started out by saying, Matt, I'm a junkie for high grade gold. And the best place to look for high grade gold is where you know there's high grade gold not far from you. And actually, plenty of evidence that there was high grade gold at surface on your project. So I'm very excited about what you guys are doing and totally looking forward to seeing those drill results and more drilling. And so we'll have to do this again.
absolutely.
Well, there you go, folks. As always, my shows are for information purposes only. Important for you to do your homework before making any investment decisions. I'm merely an idea generator. It's up to you to sort of assess your risk profile and do your homework. And ultimately, I think if you do that homework on Golden Cross, you'll find a lot of reasons to be optimistic about what they're doing and having a target-rich project in such a prolific mining region for high-grade gold and all the evidence that they have. It's there on their corporate presentations. And so I look forward to following this story because I think it's going to evolve into a important discovery of high-grade gold. So on that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, Matt.